Welcome back to Counterpoint. Again, we're discussing Canada's national daycare program and how the provinces are rolling that out coast to coast and what that would mean if you were a profit or not-for-profit daycare operator. And again, joining me is Peter Shawn Taylor, Senior Features Editor with the C2C Journal. We were discussing Alberta as, I would suggest, and I think you would agree, is a good role model where they defended and advocated for all operators within the cadre of daycare. Alberta's is a very good, interesting test case to see how their program was implemented. And of course, we can talk about Quebec in a second. But there was something interesting in the story you wrote. You said Alberta's deal is that it adds a parental income test to the $10 per day rate. This is a nod to the voluminous evidence that heavily subsidized daycare spaces are traditionally snapped up by well-off parents who can better negotiate waiting lists. So this was shocking. So just so that I'm clear, are you suggesting here that of course, when people think $10 daycare, they say, okay, that's, a lot of folks who can't afford, $50 or $100 daycares, it's very expensive. And especially if you have multiple children, well, this will definitely help those who might be struggling with daycare costs. But if this is being snapped up by those in the kind of higher end bracket, what's the point?
Well, exactly. And we've seen this. We may get into Quebec in a little more detail in a second, but the experience in Quebec, which has had very cheap daycare for 25 years, is that there's never enough to go around. I mean, that's basic economics. You lower the price quite significantly, you're going to have lots of people eager to take advantage of it. So you have waiting lists, and you have to do a lot of organization to figure out when and where to get your name on these lists. And the evidence suggests that it's wealthy folks are ones that they're well plugged in, and they have time to organize their lives in the optimal sort of way. They're the ones that tend to get the scarce, cheap daycare. So you end up subsidizing the rich and the lower income folks who maybe don't have the time or energy to figure out what the best waiting list strategy is. They end up being shut out, either staying at home or using market-based daycare. And so as this rolls out, I think it's very clear that there's going to be a lot of shortages. They're not going to be able to provide as many subsidized spaces at the $10 rate as they expect or to meet demand. And so it's going to have to be rationed in some way. And how is that going to be rationed? Well, experience tells us that the well-off folks are the ones that tend to get it. So to Alberta's credit, they created a system within the national program that does include an income test. So there is a greater belief, I guess you could say, in Alberta that the cheap daycare is going to go to the people that really need it in that province. So it's certainly a wrinkle that as this goes on and parents realize that this $10 a day daycare is out there, and how can they take advantage of it? I think waiting lists are going to balloon, and we know what happens when waiting lists get long.
I'm a parent. I have 5 children, and you chat with parents at the playground or at the wading pool, that kind of thing. And a lot of parents said, "Oh yeah, this is at this rate. Yeah, that's a great price. I'm a stay-at-home parent, but I'd love to have this one in a daycare, that one in daycare. I wouldn't have afforded otherwise." And that's all fine and well, but from what you've shared with me, it sounds like many private operators, at least in certain provinces like Nova Scotia and Ontario, are going to shut their doors. Therefore, you're going to lose all those daycare spaces. And then the ones that are available at the $10 daycare rate, as you suggested, might be snapped up by those in a higher bracket. It is shocking to me that the government wouldn't think to include a litmus test for income, or a scale that, okay, if you have this income, a geared to income scale for the cost of daycare. This is mind-boggling. It's almost as if this was rushed through and nobody thought of these things.
Well, and kudos to Alberta for including it. Now, I would say when private daycare operators say that if they sign on to the federal deal, they'd go bankrupt. I didn't think the most likely scenario is that they simply won't sign on to the federal deal, and they will continue to operate outside the system. So what you're going to see, as you alluded to, is sure there will be some $10 a day daycare, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough. And you're going to have the for-profit operators charging, in big cities like Toronto, it can be $75, $100, depending on the age range. So you're still going to have those daycares, I suspect, operating. Some may have to shut down because, if there's a $10 a day one beside you, that may be a big problem from a market perspective. But I think a lot of these daycares will soldier on, charging market rates, because there's going to be a lot of parents out there that aren't going to have any choice.